When you're just starting out using Sass, one of the first features that you're going to hear about is nesting. One reason we may want to use a preprocessor is to lessen the amount of typing that we need to create our CSS rules. Nesting allows us to use shortcuts to create our rules. In addition, we'll be able to create CSS that's well organized, easier to read, and easier to maintain. Let's look at how we can incorporate nesting into our workflow. To start off with, I have an HTML page, and it's a pretty simple page. I am linking out to Google Fonts, to Font Awesome, and to a style sheet that currently doesn't exist. It's going to be called nesting1.css. I'm going to use Koala to help me manage my CSS. I'll open up Koala, and I'm also opening up the folder that's going to contain my projects. So currently we have the HTML file, and I've already made a CSS folder and a Sass folder. Both of those folders are currently empty. I'm going to drag my example folder into Koala. As you can see, it gets added to a watched project inside of Koala. Now, currently, there is nothing to watch. All that's there is the HTML. We need to create a Sass file so that it can begin watching the Sass file. I'll go back into my editor and I'll create a new file. I'm going to save this file in my Sass folder and we'll name it nesting1.sass. If we go back into Koala and I click refresh, you can see that it already has gone ahead and recognized the Sass file and created a CSS file. Now currently the CSS file is being created within the Sass directory. This is the default location. I want my CSS to be created in my CSS folder. I'm going to go ahead and take the nesting1.css file and move it to the CSS folder. Now I'm going to go back into Koala and I'll right click on this file. I'm going to choose set output path. So what I need to do is I need to point to that CSS file that we just moved. I'll switch directories and go up one level. Then I'm going to go into my CSS folder and I'm going to select my nesting1.css file. I'm going to make sure that the name in the Save As dialog box matches the name of the file that I want to write to. I'm going to click Save, and it's just going to let me know that it's going to replace this file. This file doesn't contain anything, so I don't really care. I'll click Replace, and now the location should be in the correct spot. So if we were to go back to our Sass file, and if I just make a rule and change the background color to red so we can test this and save the file, you can see that here is my file in the browser, and clearly the background color has been switched to red. So I know that the Sass file is now writing to that CSS file. If you look inside of Koala, you'll see that underneath the file names, it's going to show you the path of where the file that it's going to be writing to will be located. So my Sass file is going to write to the CSS directory, and it's going to write a file called nesting1.css. You can also see that underneath the CSS file, there is a path as well. And this has to do with when we are all finished with our project, we might want to create a minified version. So the minified version by default is going to be created in the same CSS folder. It's going to be the exact same name with the addition of the .min at the end. If I click on my CSS file, I'll have the option to turn on auto compile. I don't want to create the minified version currently. We'll do that later on, so I'm just going to leave this unchecked, and I'll just deal with my Sass file and it'll just write to the regular CSS file for now. So now we're all set up and we're ready to begin learning about nesting. We'll do that next.